The running game. Really, I'm going to set you up, but it's not good. They're averaging less than 4 yards a carry for the season. That's big picture. There's no creativity. I mean, obviously guys are hurt, but usually they said that I could run for 100 yards. Remember, Niner fans say I could run for 100 yards in this offense. It's all about the scheme and the blocking, and those blockers are there. The same schemers are there, and this run game just looks weak. And then in this particular game, the usage of personnel got me, and this is a smaller point, but Trey Sermon's playing. He's really struggling. He had a 16-yard run. Other than that, he had pretty much nothing. He dropped that ball off his hands like he's Edward Scissorhands. Why don't you give another running back a shot? Juszczyk dives up the middle on 1st and 10. That's not really doing explosive. Much. Yeah, I mean, you called up Kerryon Johnson. You signed Jaquez Patrick. Why one carry? And you got that other guy, Trent Cannon, at a 60-yard kickoff return. I mean, 10 carries for Trey Sermon. He didn't need 10. That's one thing. So but that's a minor point. What are you seeing from the run game in particular and the offense that averaged 4.6 yards per carry in this, 4.6 yards per play in this game, and 4.5 yards per play in the last game, which is way bad, way below average?
Well, I think there's two issues. One, I think they're seeing a lot more different fronts, and they did last year too. And I think those fronts are making it very difficult for them to run the football. And they're kind of getting got in terms of a game plan aspect of how they're trying to set up their run game. And two,
amazing how defensive coordinators catch up. You just got to give them a year or two. They do it.
And And two, and I think this is the most important thing. Their running backs are not very good. They're really not very good. Yeah, they're not good. I mean, we saw they played some tough fronts, right? Like Green Bay had a really great plan on how they were going to approach this run game, and they executed it well. Philly's got a good front four, especially inside, and they had a lot of guys shooting gaps in this run game and making plays, and they were actually able to really stop this run game with their front. They ran the ball well against Detroit, but even I think it could have really skewed the numbers in terms of how it looks, because if Raheem Mostert played against Detroit, those 105 yards that Elijah Mitchell got are 220 for Raheem Mostert. Elijah Mitchell left a lot of runs on the field. I mean, there's a really good stat that's rushing yards over expected. It's like completion percentage over expected. And Elijah Mitchell was like 20th on that list through 2 weeks, and he really struggled. And it's one of those cool stats that actually line up with what you see on film. And what you see on film is that Elijah Mitchell really just is fast, and he throws his body into holes. But he doesn't have Mostert's feel and kind of glide to find the open space, find that little crease and explode through it.
He's a little bit like Matt Breida, but I think Breida's probably better.
I think Breida saw it better too.
Yeah, I think Breida's probably better than Mitchell too.
Someone on Twitter was comparing him to Tevin Coleman. I think that one's a little bit too harsh, but I can see where that comparison comes from, because Coleman was a good player early in his career before those lower leg injuries really got to him. So
he's like Breida with a little less juice.
Yeah, and I think they're not very good. They're not very good in pass pro. They've really struggled in pass pro this year. I think the only decent pass pro pickup I've seen was Hasty getting a half block in the Detroit game on the big play to Deebo Samuel. And even that, he got run over, but at least he put his body there and was there. I mean, the best job in pass pro has been done by Kyle Juszczyk, who did it yesterday. He was fantastic yesterday. So I think, one, these running backs aren't very good. And two, I just think...
Let me add something to that real quick. I think another thing is what Swan Song said on the post-game show last night. Like this is the one offense in the league where you can see all 11 defenders on the opposing defense on the TV screen.
I talked about it. I mean, they're playing split safety coverage, but both safeties are playing 10 yards from the ball. You don't see that. That's mass.
And for the layman out there, what is that doing? That's shutting down. That's like 9 men in the box, right? And why are they doing that? Well, how can they do that?
They don't believe in this pass game. They don't believe you're going to beat them over the top.
Right.
They don't believe in your receivers.
That's the consequence of constantly throwing short.
Receivers running by their corners, and they don't believe in your quarterback. That's all it is.
That's the consequence. If you can't throw down the field, then slowly your running game dies, because the defense just comes closer and closer and closer. It's what happens slowly.
And more or less, that's been one of their issues. But I can't even put it all on that, because
it's not all on that. It's just one of the contributing factors.
Yeah, Packers did have good fronts, and I just feel like the running backs aren't running as efficiently as they have been in the past. Like compared to 2019, they technically had running back depth, Breida would be the best back on this team with an injured Mostert. And Tevin Coleman, honestly, what he was at the start of 2019, I know he wore down later, but if you remember what he was in that Carolina game, the Browns game, how explosive he looked, he might be the best running back on this team over a Hasty, over a Mitchell, over a Trey Sermon, over all of these guys. And so the comparison to 2019, like there's only so much you can do schematically. Like the running backs have to execute. Running the ball is it's a lot more than just, you know, you draw it up and they run it well. And I think that's what they're going through. They're going through a lull and they can't bail themselves out with their pass game.
Yeah. Also, though, like the point about the front that you made is so good. Like in the past, especially 2019, they would play teams from like the NFC South or the AFC that just had no freaking clue. And when they played the Panthers, they put up like 50 points, like running like Naval Academy play. Like they were messing with them. Now, the last two opponents they faced have had the same front. Like,
you know why?
Know what? If you're serious about beating the Niners, you play that 5-man front.
You know why? Because obviously this is the most intricate run game of all the Shanahan run games.
Yeah.
But they all, like 50% of the NFL runs a based. They major in running this outside zone style run game. The Niners are the most intricate, but they all still major from the base of outside zone.
Right.
And if you can't
Which means
stop
you're trying to
this
get
run
to the
game,
perimeter. You're trying to get to the edge. You're trying to get outside the tackles.
But if you can't stop this run game in the modern NFL,
sorry, my mom's watching.
You
I'm just trying to lay this out.
No, absolutely, I understand. My bad, but
it's all good.
If you can't stop this run game in the modern NFL and you don't have a plan to stop this run game, you're going to lose to 50% of teams.
And how do you? What's the starting point for stopping the outside zone, Fish?
I mean, you got to shoot gaps. You got to have big defensive linemen that shoot gaps.
You got to set
the
You can't let them to the perimeter. You can't let them. You got to force the cutback into your defense. So anyway, that's what's up with the running game. Is a lot of things. One, a lack of creativity. Two, a lack of talent. Raheem Mostert actually was really good. Three, a lack of space because of this passing game. Not all Jimmy, but partially Jimmy. And yeah, those are three big ones. And the league catching up schematically.
And you know why I thought the league couldn't catch up schematically? You know why I thought this could be the best run game in NFL history?
Because of their first round pick, their second round pick, their third round pick. Yeah.
You add a quarterback run game element, all of a sudden it becomes different. Because if you play a 9-man box, you're playing 11 on 11.
Yep. Yep. Anyway, the threat of Trey Lance throwing deep, I think, would just back people off. I just feel like what you're seeing right now, and I don't want to do this too much, is defenses are like they're teeing off. Like they're attacking the Niners offense. And with Lance, they'd be more on their heels because, we got to spy him. He might throw long. I mean, yeah, he's kind of wild, but there's so many things we have to think about. It's like calls we can't do. You're just more on your heels. It's a more conservative mindset. Although watching Justin Fields take 7 sacks, I'm not sure that Trey Lance would be better. I'm not saying he would.
You know what this is, though? You know what this is? This is the proactiveness. Again, a lot of people saw this coming. I'm not going to toot my own horn because a lot of smart people were saying this. Like, the way the 49ers offense functioned in 2019 doesn't work in 2021. Just because you won a lot of games with Jimmy Garoppolo and you are still 2-1 and you're still a good football team, let's not lose sight of that because both of those things are true. But just because you won a lot of games in 2021 playing a certain style with Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't mean, or in 2019 doesn't mean you can do it in 2021. There's a reason the Rams and Sean McVay ran away, even though they still won 11 games with Jared Goff last year. Jared Goff was still effective in like 70% of their games last year, but they felt that it's no longer sustainable to keep running this gimmicky offense based around bootlegs and RPOs and all these short passes and think that you can continue to do it. They felt like defenses were catching up to them. That's why they went and got a quarterback who defenses can't catch up to. At the end of the day, whatever a defense can do to stop the McVay run game, you can't account for Matthew Stafford throwing 18-yard in-cuts through a keyhole. And that's why the 49ers also went and got a quarterback, because at the end of the day, Garoppolo has his limitations, and we're seeing those limitations.